They destroyed entire galaxies. They wiped out every species. But on the 22nd day, something impossible happened. The alien general finally met his worst nightmare. Not a weapon, not an army, but humans who refused to die. Fear, confusion, and disbelief. Within minutes, cities started to fall. Bright beams of energy came down from the ships, destroying buildings like they were made of dust. Roads cracked, towers collapsed, and the world that humans had built for centuries started breaking apart in front of their eyes. There was no warning, no message, no chance to prepare. The attack was fast, precise, and unstoppable. Leading this invasion was the most feared commander in the galaxy, General Zyrax. He had destroyed hundreds of worlds before Earth, and for him, this was just another mission. He did not see humans as a threat. To him, they were weak creatures who depended too much on emotions. He believed humans would panic, surrender, and disappear quickly. His plan was simple: finish the war in 7 days and move on to the next planet. As alien forces spread across continents, human armies tried to fight back, but their weapons were useless against the advanced alien technology. Tanks were destroyed in seconds. Jets were shot down before they could even attack, and communication systems failed everywhere. It felt like the end had already come. Families were separated, people were running with no direction, and fear controlled every moment. But even in this chaos, something small started to grow. Not power, not strength, but something deeper. Some humans did not run. Some stayed behind, helping others, saving lives, refusing to leave. They were not heroes, just ordinary people making impossible choices. General Zyrax watched everything from his command ship and felt nothing. To him, this was victory. But what he did not understand was that this was not the end of humanity. This was just the beginning of something he had never seen before. Humans were not just a species that builds cities and machines. They were something else, something that does not break easily, something that stands even when everything falls. And as the invasion continued, as the world burned and the skies remained dark, the first signs of human resistance quietly began to rise. Not strong enough to win yet, not loud enough to be noticed, but real enough to change everything. The war had started, but the story was far from over, and General Zyrax had no idea that Earth was about to become his greatest mistake. The first few days of the invasion were the darkest days in human history. Day 1 was filled with panic and confusion as people tried to understand what was happening. But by day 3, fear had turned into silence. Entire cities were gone, reduced to ruins and smoke. The world felt empty, like life itself was disappearing. Governments collapsed, leaders lost control, and communication between countries was almost impossible. It felt like humanity had already lost. By day 5, most resistance had been crushed. Military bases were destroyed, and the few remaining soldiers were scattered and alone. General Zyrax stood on his ship, watching Earth from above, seeing nothing but destruction. To him, this was proof that humans were exactly what he expected: weak and easy to defeat. He sent a message back to his empire saying that Earth would fall completely within days. He called human resistance insignificant, something not even worth studying. But while he believed the war was already won, something else was happening on the ground. In the shadows of destroyed cities, in underground tunnels, in broken shelters, small groups of humans were still alive. They were not strong, they were not ready, and they were not organized, but they were still breathing. And more importantly, they were still thinking. People who had lost everything, their homes, their families, their safety, were starting to make a choice. They could give up, or they could fight, even if it seemed impossible. Fear was still there, but it was slowly changing into something else. Determination, a quiet, burning feeling that refused to disappear. A mother protecting her child, a stranger helping the injured, a group of survivors sharing food, even when they had almost nothing left. These were not acts of power, but they were acts of humanity. And that was something the aliens could not understand. General Zyrax saw numbers, destruction, and victory, But he did not see the small moments that kept humans alive. He did not understand that humans do not need perfect conditions to survive. They adapt, they endure, and sometimes they rise from the worst situations. By day 5, the world looked dead, but it was not. Beneath the ruins, beneath the fear, humanity was still there, waiting for a chance, waiting for a moment, and that moment was getting closer. Zyrax believed this was the end, but in reality, this was the moment when humans were about to prove that even when everything is lost, they can still find a way to stand again. By the 22nd day, something unexpected began to happen. At first, it was just a weak signal, almost invisible in the silence of a broken world. Then another signal appeared, and then another. Small, scattered signs of life started to connect. Hidden survivors, people who had been silent and invisible, were slowly finding each other. They were not soldiers, not trained fighters, just ordinary humans who had survived the impossible. Many were injured, tired, and afraid, but they were still alive, and that was enough. They began to share information, resources, and hope. They started building small plans, simple strategies, not to win the war, but to survive another day. General Zyrax noticed these signals and at first ignored them. To him, they were nothing more than leftover noise from a dying planet. But as the signals grew stronger and more organized, he started to pay attention. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to be gone by now. Yet here they were, still moving, still communicating, still resisting. This confused him. He could not understand why they had not given up. From his point of view, there was no reason to continue fighting. The outcome was already decided. But humans were not thinking about the outcome. They were thinking about each other. They were fighting for small things, for one more day, for one more chance, for one more life. In underground shelters, people created makeshift tools and weapons from broken machines. They used whatever they could find, turning destruction into survival. They moved carefully, avoiding alien patrols, learning from every mistake, adapting to every challenge. Slowly, their actions became more coordinated. Small attacks began to happen, quick and precise, disappearing before the aliens could respond. It was not enough to stop the invasion, but it was enough to show something important. Humans were still here. Zyrax began to see a pattern, something he had not expected. These were not random acts. This was resistance, real resistance. And for the first time, he started to question his own assumptions. How could a species so weak continue to fight after losing everything? What was driving them? He had faced many civilizations before, and most of them surrendered when defeat became clear. But humans were different. They did not follow logic in the same way. They followed something deeper, something harder to destroy. And as the 22nd day came to an end, Zyrax realized that this war was no longer simple. Earth was no longer just another mission. It was becoming something else, something unpredictable, something dangerous, something that could not be easily understood or controlled. Humans did not rise with power, they rose with purpose. They did not have advanced technology or strong weapons, but they had something stronger, the will to keep going. Every destroyed machine became a tool, every broken piece of metal became a weapon, and every loss became a reason to fight harder. People who had never held a weapon before were now standing against an alien army. Not because they believed they could win, but because they refused to disappear. Small groups of survivors turned into teams, and teams turned into a growing network of resistance. They moved silently through ruins, learning the patterns of the alien forces, finding their weaknesses, and using them carefully. Every attack was fast and risky, but it showed something powerful. Humans were not finished. General Zyrax watched these events with growing concern. This was not how wars were supposed to go. The enemy was supposed to break, to lose hope, to surrender. But humans were doing the opposite. The more they lost, the stronger their determination became. This made no sense to him. He started studying them closely, trying to understand their behavior. But no matter how much data he collected, he could not find a clear answer. Humans were not logical in the way he expected. They acted based on emotion, connection, and something deeper than survival. They fought for each other, for memories, for a future that did not even exist yet. This made them unpredictable, and unpredictability was dangerous. Slowly, the balance of the war started to change. Not in a big, obvious way, but in small, meaningful steps. Alien patrols started failing. Small bases were attacked, and control over certain areas began to weaken. Humans were not winning yet, but they were no longer losing completely. They were pushing back, and that was enough to create fear. For the first time, Zyrax felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. He began to realize that this species he had underestimated was not just surviving, it was evolving, adapting faster than expected, learning from every failure, growing stronger with every challenge. This was not just resistance anymore. This was a rise, a slow, unstoppable rise that no one had predicted. Humans were not trying to match the power of the aliens. They were using something else, something harder to defeat. Their unity, their courage, and their refusal to give up. And as this rise continued, it became clear that the war was changing. The aliens were no longer just fighting a weak planet. They were facing something much more dangerous. A species that does not stop. A species that does not accept defeat. A species that rises again and again. General Zyrax had seen many wars, many species, and many kinds of resistance, but nothing like this. What started as a small problem had now become something he could no longer ignore. Reports were coming in constantly, small alien units disappearing, supply lines being attacked, and human resistance growing stronger with every passing day. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to be broken, scattered, and defeated. Instead, they were adapting faster than any species he had ever faced. Zyrax decided to take control personally. He would go down to the battlefield himself and end this resistance once and for all. When his massive ship descended through the dark sky, the ground below was silent but not empty. Humans were there, hiding, watching, waiting. Zyrax stepped on the battlefield with full confidence. He expected fear. He expected humans to run, to hide, to surrender. That was how every other species reacted when they faced him. But this time was different. As he moved forward, he saw something that made him stop. A single human stood in front of him. The human was injured, covered in dust and blood, breathing heavily, but still standing. There was no armor, no advanced weapon, nothing special. Just a broken person refusing to fall. Zyrax could not understand it. Why would this human stand alone against him? Why not run? Why not hide? Zyrax raised his weapon and attacked, expecting the human to collapse instantly. But the human moved, slow but determined, avoiding the attack and stepping forward again. There was no fear in their eyes, only focus. This was not bravery in the way Zyrax understood it. This was something deeper, something that did not depend on strength or logic. The human attacked back, not with power, but with pure will. Every movement was heavy, every step painful, but they did not stop. Zyrax felt something strange. For the first time in his long life, he felt uncertain. This was not how things were supposed to be. He had destroyed entire civilizations, and yet this one broken human was still standing in front of him, refusing to give up. The battlefield around them felt different now. It was no longer just a place of war. It had become something else, a moment that changed everything. Zyrax attacked again, stronger this time, but the humans still did not fall. Even when they were pushed back, they stood up again and again. This was not normal. This was not logical. This was something else. And in that moment, Zyrax understood something that shook him deeply. Humans do not fight because they think they will win. They fight because they refuse to lose. That realization hit him harder than any weapon. This was the nightmare. Not a powerful army, not advanced technology, but a species that does not stop, no matter how much pain they face. A species that stands even when everything is taken from them. Zyrax looked at the human again, and for the first time, he saw them differently. Not as weak, not as insignificant, but as something dangerous, something unstoppable. And in that moment, the most feared general in the universe felt something he had never felt before. Fear. That single moment on the battlefield changed the entire war. General Zyrax returned to his command ship, but he was no longer the same. The confidence he once had was now replaced with doubt. He had seen something that could not be explained by logic or strategy. Humans were not just surviving, they were transforming. Their weakness was turning into strength, their fear into courage, and their losses into motivation. Zyrax began to analyze everything again, every report, every battle, every sign of resistance. But no matter how much he studied, one truth became clear. Humans could not be defeated in the usual way. You could destroy their cities, their weapons, their systems, but you could not destroy their will. And that made them different from every other species he had conquered. On the ground, the human resistance continued to grow. The story of the lone human who stood against Zyrax spread quickly among survivors. It became more than just a story, it became a symbol. A symbol that no matter how strong the enemy is, humans can still stand. This gave people something they had almost lost: hope. And hope turned into action. More people joined the resistance, more attacks were planned, and more areas were reclaimed. Humans were no longer just hiding. They were fighting back with purpose. They were learning faster, moving smarter, and working together like never before. Zyrax watched as the balance of power slowly started to shift. The aliens still had superior technology, but they were losing control. Small failures turned into bigger ones, and confidence within the alien forces began to weaken. Soldiers who once believed in easy victory were now facing something they did not understand. Humans were everywhere, unpredictable, relentless, impossible to fully eliminate. Zyrax realized that this war was no longer under his control. For the first time, he was reacting instead of leading. This was the turning point. Not because humans had become stronger than the aliens, but because they had become something the aliens could not handle. A force that does not break. A force that grows stronger under pressure. Zyrax understood now that his biggest mistake was underestimating humanity. He thought they were weak because they felt emotions, but those emotions were actually their greatest strength. Love, loss, anger, hope, all of it pushed them forward. All of it made them fight harder. And as this realization settled in, Zyrax knew something else. Even if he won this war, it would never be the same. Humanity had already changed the battlefield. They had already changed him. The war was no longer about conquering a planet. It was about surviving a species that refuses to give up. And that was something far more dangerous. Earth was never known as the strongest planet in the universe. It did not have the most advanced technology or the most powerful weapons. Compared to other civilizations, it seemed small, fragile, and easy to defeat. That is exactly what General Zyrax believed when he started the invasion. He thought this would be another quick victory, another planet added to his long list of conquests. But Earth was different in a way he could not understand at first. It was not about power, it was about something deeper, something that cannot be measured or destroyed easily. Humanity. Even after losing everything, their homes, their cities, their safety, humans continued to stand. Not because they were the strongest, but because they refused to disappear. They fought for each other, for memories, for a future they could not even see yet. Every loss made them stronger. Every failure taught them something new, and every moment of pain pushed them forward. Zyrax had faced many enemies before, but they all followed the same pattern. When defeat became clear, they surrendered. They accepted the end. But humans were different. They did not accept the end. They changed it. They rewrote it. That was what made them dangerous. Not their weapons, not their numbers, but their will. A will that does not break, even in the worst conditions. A will that keeps moving forward, no matter how many times it falls. As the war continued, one truth became impossible to ignore. Humanity was not just surviving. It was rising. Slowly, painfully, but surely. And that rise was something no alien army could stop completely. Zyrax realized that he had not just found a new enemy. He had found something much more powerful. A nightmare. Not because humans were terrifying in appearance, but because they could not be defeated in the usual way. You can destroy a human, but you cannot destroy humanity. That idea stayed with him, changing the way he saw everything. Earth was no longer just a target. It had become a lesson, a reminder that true strength does not come from power alone. It comes from the ability to stand up again and again, no matter how many times you fall. And in the end, that is what defined humanity. Not their victories, but their refusal to give up. The alien general did not just face a strong enemy. He faced his worst nightmare, a species that never stops rising.